Hello, everyone.
Hello,
Uh,
good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining to this session again. Is it my microphone working correctly? Can you please let me know if it's fine, everything, if you can hear?
Yeah, we can hear you clearly.
Perfect. Thank you.
Just a quick question. What about the LinkedIn session? It
Late in
started
session.
running. I can only watch you in Teams.
Oh, you mean the
Right.
live?
The live, yeah.
I already started.
Okay,
It takes usually between a couple of seconds
that's
to
fine. Some
synchronize
people
the
joined. Yep.
live.
Okay,
Yep.
cool.
So it's not a problem. So before we start, is there any question regarding the previous session that you have? Any one of you that wants to kind of quickly review, or you get blocked or something that we can double check or validate? Okay, if it's not, let me share my screen and let's start with the session of today. Basically, as always, I'm going to share in this channel all the links. I have updated all the documentation. Please, if you see any issues or something not working as should be, let me know. I'm going to update the documentation. Still, yep. Basically, as I mentioned, I'm adding the recording session. You will find this section. You have the live access. It's a ticket you need to request. I will give you access. We have the LinkedIn group to connect and ask questions in the LinkedIn site, if there is any. And I'm adding the slides, quiz, and laboratory exercise. Please have a look at each of them. In order to organize easier the days we are doing, I'm creating one page and subpages inside of each of them. For example, today we are going to go with managing projects. And inside of the managing projects, you will see the entire content we are going to review today, plus the quiz and the laboratory if you want to follow. So let me just start the presentation. Session 3, managing projects. Let me just quickly show you the index. What we are going to see today. First of all, we will talk a bit of theory. We will start with general concepts. What is the project scheme, or what is a Jira project scheme? Then we need to understand what are the Jira fields, the most important Jira fields into the system. I'm going to highlight to you each of them. As well, we need to know what are the custom fields. Probably you already know, but just double check, and some additional tips on top of them. Later, and it's typical in the question, or at least in the last I did, is they try to confuse you in questions related to Jira screens, field layouts, and card layouts. All of them sound the same, but they are not the same. So also I want to explain to you the difference of all of them. Later, what we will do is I'm going to show you the project permissions, the most important project permissions into one of the projects. I'm going to show you the project roles, what the project roles generally does by default, what are the project roles you can do as well. And very important is the versioning. Jira has a specific type of field, which we will see in a minute, which is called fixed version or version or affected version. So we need to play with this and understand how does it work. As well, Atlassian calls subcategorize issues, which is just a way to filter the information using labels, components, or any other type of filtering. And then component and auto-assignment, that's a critical one. Definitely is going to come at least 5 questions related to component because it's very often easier to confuse. And then later we'll see the field layouts. Previously, in the beginning, we will show the theory. Then later we will basically modify them and see inside. And reach issues is just, we have the tickets, we have the projects, what else we can add on top of them. It's a basic concept, the enrich issues. So let's start. General concepts. What is a project scheme? Basically, a project scheme, I'm using the same diagram I shared at the beginning, but with a small additional information. We knew in the previous session that a project is not more than a box, a container of tickets. So you have multiple tickets, pass, bug, tasks, custom tickets, epics, anything you have into the project. So we know that this is how is it working. So an aggregation of issues is contained into a project. But additionally, a project has other information you can change. The key information that you can change, we will see in the configuration part, is basically the name, the project key, small highlight in the project key. Whenever you change the project key, you need to update the filters that you are using or the filters that are using the project key, because the project key, the filters has related text to the project key, and if you don't update, the filters will not work. As well, we'll do one example of this, and we'll see the results. Typical example of the question is that one. Which information or what do you need to do whenever you change a project key, because it's going to happen a reindexing. Whenever it happen a reindexing, what you have to change or what you have to manually update, one of those are the filters. Then we have project type. In project type, I'm not going to go more deep, but project type basically has only three categories in Jira Cloud. One of them is work management, the other one is software, and the other one is Jira Service Management. The certification ACP-620 is only focused in software. Don't misunderstand Kanban, Scrum, all these type of projects with the project type. The project type is basically the master of all of them are the type of software. Then we have what Jira call project category. Project category is a specific type of label that you can add to your project. So later you can easily search the projects on a specific category. We can update the information, but we cannot, as a project administrators, we cannot create new categories. The permission to create new categories is in the side of the Jira administrator. But as a project administrator, you can select and replace the project category. As well, we have the project lead, which is basically the person who by default is the person who creates the project lead, but doesn't mean that you cannot change it. Can be as well part of the question. You can change the project lead later after the creation, and the project lead is the person in charge of the project, or at least that the person who will appear in the project as a project lead. And then you have default assignee. Default assignee is one functionality that allow us to assign automatically all the tickets that you create into a project to that particular person. By default as well, you have unassigned, but you can specify if it's the project lead or a specific person. As well, you have description. It's a text box where you can change the name and you have the pre-description. Um, Out of this basic information you can update in a single page, Jira works having schemes. What are the schemes? Basically, the schemes are like a contract. A project has rules to change. For example, if you want to change the types, you need to have a contract for these types you're going to have or the types you're going to use. If you want to change the workflow, same, you need to have a specific rule. Each of these rules are called schemes. In the example you see here, we are seeing the issue type screen, the issue type scheme. And in this example, as you can see, I make a screenshot of one of our projects we have created. We have story, bug, epic, task. That means this project can contain issues with any of these types. A project Jira project administrator cannot modify, cannot add more issue types, but the project administrator can select a switch to a different issue type scheme. At the same time, the Jira administrator is available to create new issue types if you need more, and that's it. The next point is workflow scheme. As I mentioned, workflow scheme is the other contract we have. What gives us workflow scheme is basically you have issue type, you have issues, and the issue can be a specific issue type. And what you can do is you can map to that specific issue type. Let's say, for example, task. If I want to have a task with a specific flow to follow, I just need to add into this project a workflow scheme, map it to my task, my issue type task. And that's it. This is the way we make the relation between the workflow and the project with this contract. The next one is field configuration scheme. Field configuration scheme is simple. It's a list of all the custom fields of the system where you can hide and you can mark as mandatory. In this example, I mark reviewer as a mandatory field. So if you want to configure your project and have fields that are required in the creation or in the edition during the life of the project or the issue, you need to use field configuration. Example of question here can say uh, which scheme you can modify in order to have to hide or in order to mark as a required field. This is the field configuration. The next one is screen schemes. Screen schemes, I'm going to show you into the project itself, but just to give you an overview, screen has three. The screens basically are the forms you have when you are opening a ticket. When you create a ticket, you have the formulary. This is the creation screen. When you open the ticket, the full information, this is the view screen. And if you are able to edit one of those fields, this is the edition screen. Each project by default have one or two, depending on the type of project you are creating, or two screen schemes. Sorry, one screen schemes with one or two screens. The screens are the fields you can modify or you can edit or you can view, basically. In this example, I added four fields into my creation, which is summary, label, assignee, and description. And in the view, I remove the description. What does it mean? That means that when you open the ticket, you will see the other fields, but you will not be able to see the description. Maybe it's not going to work because description usually just appear always, but it's as example. Same, we have this screen, which is a formulary for view, and I remove label in the edition screen. What means that? That means I can see these three fields from the view, but I cannot edit the label. And also because I don't have description, I cannot edit description. Also, I don't see it. So this is how is it working. There is three screens. Later, we are going to see the difference. I think it's one couple of steps more later. We will see what's the difference between the screens, the layouts, and the card layouts. Same. There's a lot of confusion on that, but it's simple. Let's go to the next part. There is another two I didn't add specifically for each of them is the permission scheme as a notification scheme. The permission scheme is simple. You have a list of all the permissions the project can do and who can do. That's it. I mark in red because in permission scheme, there are a couple of permissions that usually came in the exam. We will see in the configuration itself, but in advance, I would say one of them is browse permission. Browse permission is one permission that allows the user to see the tickets into the project. If you're not capable to see the tickets, even if you create or even if you receive a notification that you have been assigned to one of them, you will not be able to open the ticket. It's because the browse permission. Then later we have notification scheme. Same. Notification scheme is a list of all the emails we can send or notifications we can send in which event we want to send them in the creation, in the edition, in a general updates. We will see the example of the notification screen. I mark in red, which I consider one of the most important to review because there are many permissions you need to double check, focusing the most important of them. And then I mark in yellow, which usually came in the exam, which is related to the screen scheme and the issue type screen. In the issue type screen, type scheme. Why they came is basically they match process, usually in test cases. We will see when we will try to configure this part. Next point, what is a Jira field? Definitely the majority of you knows what is a Jira field, but just double check. Jira field is, is the information we can modify and edit into the ticket. But Jira field are the standard fields. I mark as well what are the most important fields we need to take in consideration. In yellow, sorry, in red, the complex part. As I mentioned, we will need to do a couple of examples with components and fixed version. Components is important because in components, we can automatically assign a person based on the value of the component. As well, the tricky question of Atlassian is what happens if you have multiple components? And usually the question is related with multiple components and the order, alphabetic order of the person who's going to be assigned. I will do an example of that. The other important is the fixed version. And why is this is important is because Atlassian has three names for the fixed version. In the screen appears as fixed version because this is a task. But if you are creating or working in a bag, will appear as affected version. But when you go to the project to configure the versions you have, will appear as a release. So it's the same element or the same list of values, but represented or displayed in fixed version, affected version, or just release. The other important is the estimation. The estimation is not, maybe not that important right now in the configuration side, but it's going to be very important in the reporting side when they ask you questions about reporting. Because you can estimate in story points or you can estimate in time, and those are part of the reporting overview. In yellow, I mark the other fields that you need to know. They are very important, crucial, but it's kind of easier to understand how they work. Epic link. You create an epic into a project and then you add the epic into the ticket. So there's no more. It's a list of epics you can add into an issue. Similar, we have the in this green box we have what is called the status. The status is basically the actual situation of this ticket. This ticket has already been complete or has been done. Is the status. You can customize the status in the workflow configuration in the workflow scheme. But at the same time, whenever you complete in your Kanban or in your Scrum and you close in the last column or in the column with resolution set, this one is what appears here. It's called resolution and never appears the name of the field over here. In the previous versions in Jira server, it was very simple to understand because on top or in the right side appear like this resolution and then the value of the resolution, which is done. But now they remove it to make it more simple. And now this is resolution, you know which is the resolution, but doesn't show you that the name of the field. As well, other thing that is not visible is the issue type. The issue type, which in this example is task, I know due to the color of the issue type is this one. If you click on the icon, you will see the name of the issue type, task. Other fields in green, simple to memorize, or maybe not really important to memorize, but knows how is it working, is the user, assignee, the designee, the reporter, labels, priority, description, and summary. Definitely, there are more fields by default of the system, but I would say play with this. Once you memorize know those fields, it's going to be fine. The next point is what is a Jira custom field? We saw in Jira field is basically the information you can change into each ticket. What is a Jira custom field is the same, but the difference is it's not coming from Atlassian. It's something you can create yourself and customize. For example, in your company, you want to add the ID of the address of your company. So you create a new custom field called type text field and you call address of company, and then any user can fill the information address of your company. If you want to include other type of fields with more text, you can use text field multiline. Text field multiline basically is theoretically unlimited number of characters you can add. For example, if you want to add the definition of done in a big text box, you can just add the text field multi-line and then the users will fill the definition of done in multiple lines of the ticket or the issue. As well, in the other side, I group some of the examples as well important. One of them is the select list, single choice and multiple choice. Select list is just an option that the project administrator can add into your project. All of these fields the project administrator can add into the project, but they cannot create. All the fields needs to be created by the Jira administrator. So select list is a basic field where you have multiple options and you select one of them. And select list multiple choices, you have a list of options and you can select more than one as much as you need. And then we have the ready button, which is pretty similar to the select list, which is basically you can mark the difference between the select list and the ready button is you see all the list in the screen, while the select list you need to click to see the options. In the case of checkbox, it's similar to the radio button, but you can select multiple options, not just one, while in the radio button, you select a single one. From these fields or custom fields, I saw often the question related to label. The question will be about what to use, component, label, or version. Um, and the answer is it depends. You can do pretty much the same with both of them. The main difference to use label is you don't need a Jira administrator, you don't need a project administrator to create new elements. If as part of your requirement you need to have a field that is basically contain a tag, and then you click in the tag and see all the issues that has that tag, you can use the label. It's flexible. No one is controlling the values of the labels, so anyone can add, and you reduce the dependency with your project administrator or your year administrator. Now, in the left side, I do have uh, I separated those fields, text field and text multiply field, because they cannot be used in charts as a statics. You cannot make numbers with them. It cannot be countable. So take care about that. Usually that could be a question or something related to these fields can be a question. If you have a list of fields and then an options, which of them can be included in different type of reports, the text fields definitely cannot because are just text and Jira is not capable to text to make numbers on them. But in addition, one advantage that you can have with text fields is this operator. The operator to search any character into the value is a very useful one, and you can use with these fields. While in the other side, you can do charts, you can create statics with them, but you cannot use this operator. Even so, you don't need for that. This is the part I was mentioning before about the screen, field layouts, and issue cards. So let me show you. First of all, what we have in the left side is the screens. We mentioned before that we have 3 screens by default. You can remove one of them and use just a single one and aside the operation of creation, edition, or view. But those are the screens. Is basically the forms or the list of fields you can use into your project for creation, for edition, and for view. But Atlassian introduced recently, or a couple of years ago, a new way to organize and modify this information. They call layouts. The layouts is basically when you open the ticket, you can see some fields that appear in the center close to the description. Those fields, and as part of the question, they will ask you if doesn't have value, will be or not be displayed a field. In the case of description fields, always the description fields are visible, even if they don't have value. Or in the other side, context fields appears in the right side and always are visible as well, even if they don't have value. That's the main difference is the location of both of them. And then they ask you about hide when empty. Hide when empty means it's a section that you can customize into your project. I'm going to show you how to add them. And whenever they don't have values, they are hide, they are collapsed. Why this is tricky? It's tricky because the names you see here, description field, context field, and hide when empty field, this is the name you see in the project settings, but not in the ticket. In the ticket, what you see, or in the issue, what you see is for description fields, you don't have any title, so there is no information about those are description fields. In the context fields, they in the title or subtitle, they call details. So it can create confusion. In details goes the context fields. And in more fields are going the hide when empty. Also, there is something interesting here. Whenever you you expand the more fields and you add a value on more fields, automatically goes to the section of details. That's why it's a bit tricky. Same, I'm going to show you in the example, so it's going to clarify this point. Before to close, difference. You have a list of fields, which are creation, edition, and view. Those are the screens. Layout is the way you display the information you are viewing into the ticket. The other part is, I think it's a bit not clear. This one is about what are card layouts then? We have screens, we have layouts, and then card layouts. What are the card layouts is when you go to this to the backlog or when you go to the sprint or the Kanban, there are three fields you can fill and add into each card. For example, in this backlog, I added in the ticket example, one field doesn't have value, that's why I appear as none. I added a label, incomplete, and I added a date, I think it's due date. So I added these three fields, that's why they appear into the card without clicking into this issue. This is one of the example of card layout. Same in the other side. Whenever you have a sprint or a Kanban, in the columns to do, in progress, or review, the three values you can modify. The limit is 3. By default, they goes 0. So by default, you don't have this row. It's empty. You have just the title and this basic information. Same here. By default, you don't have this section. You only have the summary, the issue type, the assignee, and the key. But you can include them. Before to go to the practical cases and show you each of them, do you have any questions about what I mentioned before? Okay, I see there is no question, so I'm going to continue with the slide. So managing project. Okay, the first we need to see is the project permission. So let me go and show you the project permissions in one of our examples. Bueno, in our test environment. I'm going to use the company managed project, this one. Let's go to project permissions. So how we go for if it's your first time reviewing the project permissions in your project, as a project administrator, you can go to project settings, and inside of project settings, you are going to find all these options. Before to go to project permissions, let me show you quickly, because that's a bit more advanced. Let me show you quickly a bit the details. I mentioned at the beginning that we can create well, we can modify the name of the project. I'm going to modify project company managed. I can update ACP-620 example. And as you can see, I update the project key and automatically will start in the background reindex process. What does the reindex mean? It's going to update because all the tickets, when you create a ticket, the ticket has the project key plus a number. So whenever you change the project key, all the tickets needs to update. This is the process of reindexing. You have another field is called URL. I haven't really used it, and I don't really remember that some questions in the exam came with that. Project type by default, as we are doing the ACP-620, is going to be software. And project category here appears as empty, and I cannot edit because I don't have project category. So before to go to the other more advanced settings, let me show you the project category. How does it work? As a year administrator, I'm going to create a project category. So Now I have a project category. It's called ACP-620. If I go to projects and I see all the projects, the project category appears empty. So what I'm going to do now, because I update my project category, is in my project, I will refresh. Oh, sorry. Let me save first. I save the project key, and now the display is available and I can change the project category. Let me save again. I'm going back to the previous tab where we have all the projects. Now I can see that there is my project. What is important? Not really important. It's just a way to filter the projects. If you click in the project category, as you can see, you can include. Thanks, Oliver. I see you are using. Good. Other information important here. Well, description, not relevant. The other one is the project default assignee. As you can see, you can select the project lead as default assignee. So anytime someone creates a task, automatically goes to goes to myself in this case because I'm the project lead. Now continue with the project permissions. So the project permissions is in this section. It's called permissions. And you will see the entire list of all the changes a user or group of user can do. As I mentioned, the most important here, or one of the most important, is the browse permission. The browse permission basically has the ability to see or display the issues. If you don't have the browse permission, you cannot see the browse permission. We can do a couple of tests. I'm going to edit the word permission. A project administrator cannot edit the word permission. The word permission is editable just by the year administrator. But the project administrator, let me show you one step back. Here you can select a different scheme. The project administrator cannot change any of these schemes, cannot modify the schemes, but can switch between one scheme to another scheme. So going back to the pre-permission and taking the advantage of being the year administrator, let's do one example in here. Browse permission. You have two options here. One is update or one is remove. Update will allow you to add more permissions or more people into this permission. Remove will allow you to remove any permission. For example, my project actually is available for anyone into the system. I'm going to remove that. And now if I try to go to my project, I will see that something went wrong and I cannot see any ticket. Reason is because I don't have the project permission. I'm the year administrator, so I can just restable that permission. But I'm not going to do directly that. What I'm going to do is give some permissions. For example, we have in the session Jay, Olga, Gabriela. So let's do a couple of tests. I'm going to assign to a specific user. Any logged user node, user custom field, single user. So I'm going to select, for example, Jay. I'm going to add as well another single user, Gabriela. And if you try to open the project, I'm going to share in the session. If you add, please try to open the link I share in the Teams, and you will be able to see even I'm the year administrator, but I'm not part of this permission, so I cannot see any ticket. I cannot see absolutely nothing. But you definitely will be able. Please, Jay or Gabby, just confirm that you can see.
Yeah, I can see all my tickets.
Perfect. It's in the link I share, right?
Yeah, it's in the link.
Perfect. So this is very important. Troubleshooting. Why a user can not see any more tickets in a board that was working before. One option can be the browse permissions has been modified into that project or that scheme. Other option is someone update the board and change the mapping status with the workflow as we saw in the previous session, or there is another one. It's a bit more advanced, and I think it's not going to come as part of the ACP-620, is the security. There is another level of protecting the tickets, which is security levels. I don't recommend to study right now security levels because it's not going to be as part of your exam. But I'm going to restable. Well, no, I'm going to do role because the next thing we have to do or review is the role. So I'm going to add a role. I will add the role of customers. So any customer can see my project. I will update the role of administrators and anyone can see my project. As part of the exam related to permissions and roles, which is the next step, usually Atlassian asks you when to use groups, this one, or when to use roles. The question is simple. The answer is simple. For big organizations, for example, a bank, they have defined the groups coming from a centralized place. So they have Active Directory, they have Azure LDAP, they have any other user and groups authentication authorization provider. So they manage everything by groups. In these type of cases where everything is a standard and need to be compliant, the answer is going to be use groups because the company already is managing all of that. But for more dynamic solution and allow the project administrator to add, remove people without changing the project permissions is using roles. The Jira administrator can create as much as many roles they need, add one role. Let's do this example. I'm going to create one additional role. Just quickly. As a project administrator, as a Jira administrator, I can create a role. I'm going to create a webinar. So I added this new role. In the system, I have administrators, service desk, and webinar attendees. So now what I will do is in the browse permission, I will grant this role. If you don't see, it's because you need to refresh. Let me refresh the screen. So updating this project role and webinar attendees. As before to test and validate, let's double check something else. As part of the question, what can happen or what they can ask you for is what you can do. You have roles, you can map roles in the permissions, you can add application access. In my case, we have only Jira software, but you can have Confluence if you have available Confluence application or Jira service management application. So this is the type of products of Atlassian. You can use those as access limitation. You can use groups, as I mentioned before. You can make it public, so anyone can access. Any logged user, which means any license, any type of license into the application can see your project. We have service desk customer portal. What does it mean? Any user that has a credential, even if they are not a user with license, can also have access to see your project. Next one is the reporter. So anytime one reporter create, automatically we'll see the ticket. Single user, as we saw with the example with Jay and Gabriela. Project lead is if you want to assign the visibility just the project lead, that can be used at the beginning of the project creation to limitate that no one else except the project lead has access until the configuration is completed. Current assignee, same. So the actual user assigned into the ticket can see it. Custom field. We mentioned before a couple of examples of custom fields. There is two of them that I didn't mention. One of them is the user. So you can create a field where you can select any user into your system, or you can select a field where you can create a field where you can select any group into your system as well. If you select this, what is going to happen is the user in this custom field will have permissions of browse, will see your tickets, or the users into the group of that custom fields can see as well this project. It's a bit not very common to use, but some particular cases can happen. I could say have a look. The most important project role group. Uh, yeah, so, yeah. Those are the kind of critical. And as we see here, how to update. You click to remove. Select what you want to remove. I'm going to remove J, for example. Then that's it. My permission of browse has been removed, so J doesn't have access anymore to see any ticket in that project. Similar to this browse permission, I would highly recommend to review all the list here. They are doing the same. Each permission is clear. It's trying to explain to you. If I have to choose some of them as more important than others, I would say assignable and assignee. It's a tricky question. What is assignable and what is assigned issues? Assignable is, let me show you in the ticket. Um, I don't have permissions, so let me first grant my access. So I have oh, I have assigned two roles. As a project administrator, you can do any of those. And now if I go to my ticket, I can see. So what I wanted to show you is what the difference between assign and assignable. Assignable means if you click here, you can I can select my name because I'm an assignable user. But in order to edit the field, I need to have two things. One of them is the screen, edition screen. I need to have this field. This is the first thing, because if this field is not in the edition screen, even if I see, I cannot modify. Second, the person, if I'm not assigned, if I don't have assigned permission, I cannot change this value, even if the value is in the screen of edition. So that's why it's kind of important to know the difference. Assignable is the person you can select in the field, and assigned permission is your permission to modify this value. And as an extra troubleshoot as part of the exam, another consideration you need to know is the field you want to edit needs to be included into the edition screen. Is it that clear? Is questions about that, the assignee and assignable? No? Perfect. So let's continue with the permission. Other important can be uh, edit issue, definitely, because that allow you to work on the ticket. As well, you have transition issue. Transition issue doesn't really mean many things, but and the answer say ability to transit issue. Transition issue means this: when you click in the status, you can change the ticket in different statuses. That is transition permission. If you don't have that, you can see the status, you can edit, you can do whatever you need to do, but you will not be able to move your ticket from one column to another column. As well can be part of the exam. In an exam question, can ask you, you have a Kanban board and you can move from one status to another, but you cannot close it or you cannot move to release or done. That can, in that case, for example, if you can move in between some columns and not in the end column or another specific columns because you are mapped incorrectly your board. But if you cannot move from any columns and you re-review your Kanban mapping, that is because you don't have the permissions to transit your issue. There are a lot of options here. I will highly recommend to review them. Some of them are clear. The majority of them are clear. Just the examples I showed to you are the unclear. The transition issue, the assign issues, and the assignable user. And the others are self-explained. Create attachments, delete attachments, and for each of them, the process to update or change is same. Click on update and then select the project role, the project group, anything we saw before is exactly working the same way. Going to the next one, sorry. project roles. Project roles I kind of explained before, but let's have a look. We mentioned that you map your roles, groups, or whatever you want in the permissions, but then later, as a project administrator, in order to manage your team, you can just add or remove people into those roles. If I go to project settings and section called people, in people, what I can do is I can add more. Let me add, for example, Olga, Gabriela, Tash, WiQU, Jorge, Jay. And I'm going to choose the permissions to see the tickets was webinar attendee. So I'm going to add all of you to the webinar attendee. Please let me know if you can see the tickets into the project. It's the same link of the previous project. And this is the roles. Basically here, what you can do is you can, as a project administrator, you can add people and then select the role you want. And the role can be linked to the permissions. This is the flexibility and the power of the roles into Jira. Questions about the roles? Like I could say there are not more things, just that you can anytime select or remove and add more. But that's everything about roles. You don't have more complexity on this part. If there's not more questions, let me go to the next point. The next point is interesting. It's about versioning and managed release. Why is this is interesting? Is because version and managed release is a feature that is living into the project. Let's go to the manage company manage this one. This is my project. For example, I have my company managed board, and here I can see development releases. It was, yes, MVP. I will set today and ending by the end of the month. So I have one release. I will create a couple of them. I will select 3. And I'm going to change the driver. This is Gabriela. I'll select J here. So we have 3 releases or versions and 3 people with different start date and the progress status. Seems a simple field, simple value, but the power of this is if I go to backlog and I see all my tickets, what I can do is, let me click on here. I'm in the backlog. I can switch also later in version in Scrum. Basically, I have now my versions. I can just drag and drop, drag and drop. I will do it a couple of them. I will create some additional tasks. Please feel free to add tasks into this board. Now I will close this one. And some of them, okay, so perfect. We have this. Now, if I go to releases, in progress, I will move some of them in progress and I will go to releases. And what is happening here, or what is the, in the ticket, let me open one of the tickets. In the ticket, the release the release or the version MVP1 appear in fixed version, which is this one. I can have one or multiple versions in one ticket. It's a label, basically it's a special type of label. Why? Because this label, if you open this, you will have a report. You have a report of all the tickets of this MVP or this version you have created. You will see when start, when finish, the driver, the contributors, which is the people working on those tasks, and uh, and as well the status, the global status of all of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play with some of the examples. I will, you already close, yeah, I see. I will let us as this. Let me, all of them has been completed already. I want to let some of them open. I don't want to close to do one small example. Mhm. I don't know what is, it's automatically closing the ticket. Oh, okay, I see. The resolution is set to done in any of the statuses. So I remove this and let's back to see if we can, yes, clean it. Clean it, perfect. So now we have some of the tasks or yeah, some of the tasks that has the release are part of the has been complete. Some of them are still in progress or in to be done. If I go to the release, I can see that information. I can see in green everything complete, in blue everything is in progress, and gray everything that needs to be done. And the advantage or the extra features this field has is, for example, if I want to release the entire this MVP1, I click on release, and then the system will ask me what to do. I can ignore the resolve issues, or I can move the issues that are not completed yet to a next release, and automatically the system will do. This is part of the question. And as well, if you click on here to see all the releases, you have the archive and release. And questions about this is, I have one released MVP. Can I archive? Yes, you can archive. I have now archived. The question exam could be something like, can you uh, merge or unrelease? And usually is related to this one. Whenever you archive, the unique option you have is an archive, and then later you can unrelease. So there is a process you have to follow, and the questions will be aligned to this process. Is if you can release or unrelease whenever it's archived or is complete. So first we do this, and I think going back to the ticket, I'm going to open one of these issues. So as I mentioned, here appears as fixed version. I'm going to create one back to show you the other face of this field. It's the same value, it's the same information, but you will see that appears with affected version. So affected version or fixed version, but it's the same option. Whenever they are talking about fixed releases are fixed version, affected version, but they still part of the releases. Uh, I think that's it from release. The next one is component. Component in the case of version, I'm sorry, is subcategory issues. Before two subcategories, I'm going to do component because I think it's a bit more important. As we have the component into the project, we also have, sorry, as we have the release, we also have components. Components, what they are. Components is, let's say, for example, AWS. I'm going to select Gabriela. I'm going to select the follow Signy component lead. I will create another one, issue. I will select J, component lead. So we have J, Gabriela, let's see, AWS GCP. I'm going to choose, for example, Olga, and I will say here is an unassign. So what the component does is when we select one component is simple. Let's do this first exercise. I'm going to create one ticket in the same project. You can choose any of them. I will say example. Now I will select one component. If you select AWS, create. So what is going to happen is the person who was in the component AWS, Gabriela, automatically being assigned. But let's do a bit of troubleshooting. We say the project has a default assignee. The default assignee of the project actually is the project lead, which means myself. But because I added a component, the component will override my assignation. The component has higher priority than the project lead. This is part of the question of the exam as well. Who has higher priority? Always is going to be component lead whenever component lead exists. Doing the exercise again, example 2. I'm going to select test because test didn't have any assignee and any value. So I create test and see the ticket. I create test and the assignee is Frank. The reason is because the default assignee is Frank. Because the component was empty, if we go to the components view, the component, oh, sorry, that is the default assignee. Let me delete, I would say unassign. Let's repeat the example. Example 3. I will select the component test. So the component of the test is empty and overwrite my automatically assignation of Frank because has a component. If you wouldn't have component, couldn't work. Now, this is not the problem. The problem is multiple components. I'm going to select test, which doesn't have any assign. I'm going to select Azure, and let's see what's going to happen. Azure has, where is Azure has Gabriela as assigned, test has empty. So what is going to happen is my ticket will be assigned to Azure. I'm sorry, Azure is J. So because the other component didn't have any value as is in as unassigned, automatically use the first value defined, which is J. As well, understandable. Now let's go a bit more complex. Let's select all of them. I'm going to select AWS, I'm going to select Azure, I'm going to select GCP, I'm going to select test. All components. Before to see the ticket, I would like to ask in the team, what do you think is going to happen? Is the number 17? I will not open. And I'm going to show you first the components and then we'll open. We created one task with all the components added. So what happened is the system will try to search the component lead or the component default assignee. Each component has, if I edit, it has a couple of options. It has the component lead, has the default assignee. The assignee can be the component lead. The assignee can be the project default. The project default is in the project details. The assignee can be the project lead or can be unassigned. If we add multiple components, the system, what we'll try to do is first we'll search for all of them if they have a component value, if they have any assignee value. uh, test and GCP are unassigned, which means they will not have any value, so it will not consider in the equation. Then there is two options. The Azure and AWS has two values as component as default assignee, and both of them are the component lead. The component lead in Azure is Jay. The component lead in AWS is Gabriela. Now the answer or the algorithm is going to take the alphabetic order. So in theory, should be Gabriela because it's before than Jay. I'm going to give you permissions in a second. Let me just double check and review. And as we expected, the component took the first in alphabetic order. I would really recommend to create multiple components and play with all of the combinations possible and do your predictions, because easily can come 4 or 5 questions regarding components. And what did you say? Sorry, that. Okay, this project, you don't have pre-settings. Okay, let me double check what is the project. I'm going to review your projects. Let's see, Olga. The project you're showing is company. Oh, you have multiple projects. Which of them? Ah, this one. Let's see who is the project settings. The project lead. Okay. So Olga, you're the project lead. Let's check the permissions. Admin permission is administrators. Let's see if you, yes, the reason is because the administrator are the who has permissions to administrate your project. And I think you are not in the administrator role, so let's add you. We go to people, and then as you see, it's empty. We're going to add Olga as a project administrator. Please, can you refresh your screen now and see if you have the project administration permissions? Meantime, she's
Yes, I have. Thanks.
perfect. You're welcome.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
I treat today. I treat to create new project, company management project, and it was not possible to
Yeah,
create.
yeah. The reason is because we give only project administrator,
Okay.
and project administrator doesn't have permissions to create. The reason we give project administration permission is because the exam is going to focus in your limits, in the limits of project administrator, what can do and what they cannot do. That's the main thing.
Okay.
If you need to set up a project, we can give you raise a task in the request ticket, raise your requirements, and we can give you a project, and then you can play it on that. Basically, that's the main thing, is to set your limits on the project administrator.
Okay, but it is enough now. When I have project settings now for this project, it's enough for me.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect. You're welcome. So going back to the previous part, which was subcategorize. Subcategorize here is just basically talking about what to use. Use components, labels of custom fields. In the exam is simple. When to use components, when to use labels, when to use custom fields. And usually when they talk about custom fields, they talk about the select list or the multiple list or the label fields. And the answer for the majority of the questions, there is nothing I can show you on these subcategorized issues. The thing I wanted to highlight here is the most important. When we want as a requirement to use components, whenever you need to automate the auto assignation of the user into the ticket, that's the main thing. The second, when do we want to create labels or use labels as to categorize the tickets? When we don't want to create impediments to the team and anyone in the team is able to add new values. Let me just show you what I mean with that. If I open one ticket, And with this, we will close. If I open one ticket, as a project, as a standard user, I cannot create components. I only can create components if I am a project administrator. So components is restrictive for a standard user. But if I'm a project and normal user, I can always create labels without any blocker, without any requirement to the project administrator or the year administrator. This is the main case when we want to use labels. And now the other option, because always is about options and list of values, the other option is the select list. When to use select list? Select list we want to use when the list of options are restricted and no one, either the project manager, the project administrator can change it. One of this example, let me just create one and show you in this example. I will create one custom field as a project administrator. The most important is one of these, multiple choice, single choice. I will select single choice. I'll select countries. If you want to have the control of our inventory, we need to use select list. This is the main requirement for this. I will add to all of them because I don't have. And now, if I create a field, I will see components created by the project administrator, labels, any I want to use, any of the examples I created without any restriction, but countries only available at least managed by the company, by the year administrator. So those are the three cases, and those are the reason because you have to choose one of them, each of them. And I think we almost finished. Sorry. Configure troubleshoot automatic issue assignment. We already did this one, the automatic assignment. And then the last part, enrich issues. Enrich issues is simple. When they talk about enrich issues, they are talking about links. These three options on here. Oh, these three options, two options. Let me show you. When they talk about enrich issues, they are talking about the permissions you can add to include attachments. You can limitate the permission using a scheme permission to block the attachments. This is one of them. The other one is the link issue. You can link to another existing issue, or you can, as here, by click on link issue, but also can be a Confluence page or web link. So this is what Atlassian mean for enrich issue. And the requirements is basically to add more content into your ticket without relation of custom fields. And I think I created additional material in the page I shared already, which is this one. If you go to the end, you will see quiz about the topics we saw, starting from medium level up to advanced level. Have a look. If there is anything that you don't have clear, or feel free to reach us into the group, into the LinkedIn group. The other one is, going back, the other one is the Managing Projects Lab. If you're interested to practice and test your knowledge as well, I have created a couple of labs, 5 for each chapter. You will see in the subtitle, you will see the level of this. This one is for 6 months of experience, how to create a project, what you need to do, step 1, step 2, what is the expected deliverable. Similar, you don't need to deliver anything, it's just for you. But if you want to double check, feel free to reach me out. I can help you to review and help you if you are blocked on some of them. We have 5, and the 5 usually is the most complex and added a lot of stuff. For the 5, probably you need to create your own account in Atlassian, because you will need to do Jira administration permissions, and we only give project administration permission. Similar as you have for the day 3, I just added yesterday the other days as well. If you go down, you will see in slides, in quizzes, and laboratory exercise. In slides, you have the slides for the previous session, the day 1, day 2, day 3, which is today. You have as well the quiz for all of them and the laboratories for all of them. The day 1 I need to update. It's not the completed date, but the day 3 and day 2 for all of them are up to date. Before to close, is there any other question? Do you want to clarify?
I wanted to show to see the video from last session, but I don't found it. I found only for first lesson video.
Quickly, if you go to recordings, you will go. Oh yeah, sorry. You go to the first link. Okay, let me share with you the playlist because the playlist has the. Okay, I don't have it. I'm going to share with you in the channel, or I will update the link. I will update the link, and you can have. Let me have a look. I think just it's a mistake of the link. As soon as I find the link, I will update the page, and please go to the page. Give me after the session, I will search, and in half an hour you will have it in the page.
It's no problem. Thanks. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, thank you very much, everyone, and apologize. I think I exceed the time a bit. So see you next time. Thank you.
Frank,
Yep.
before you go, I have a couple of questions, a quick one.
Sure.
Regarding the assignee, you mentioned when some issues have been created, so it follows an order or a hierarchy. Let's say the first one goes to component lead, then project lead, then if there's nothing unassigned, and final one is project default. The question is, what if there's an automation rule?
Automation rule will override everything.
Override everything.
Yeah.
Let's say
We have
the
we have
issue is
another
high.
session about automation rule, and we will
Yes,
see
yeah.
the automation rule.
Okay, I was gonna say, okay. And the second question is, I'm sending a link. This is the project, and if you have a quick look.
Yeah, give me a second. I'm going to open the project. Yes, I see your project. Let me share my screen so we can. Here. Okay. Yep.
Okay, so in that project, there's a task at the bottom. I flagged it, and this issue, I cannot add into an epic. Can you show me how I can add?
Yeah,
There's no option
sure.
for it.
First of all, let's
There's an
see.
epic created at the backlog.
Okay, let's have a look. You have the epic. We need to enable the epic. This one, right?
Yeah.
No, that's it.
Or probably because I didn't enable it. That's why.
Also in the screen, probably it's not visible. If we open the ticket separated, is it epic? Yeah, you don't have in the screen. The reason
So
because
you
you
need
cannot
to
add
add
here.
in the screen.
Yes, you need to add in the screen. This is the layout. In the layout, you don't have. If you add in the layout, you will add in the screen as well. Let me search Epic in the layout view. Oh, this is team manage. Okay, no,
Team manager.
it's the different. Team
Has to be
management.
company managed, right?
Yeah, it's in company manage. The
Okay.
team manage, you can add fields and you can create new fields here. And this is the unique way to do is go to the backlog and into the backlog enable the epic, and then you can
And add
assign.
that.
What we saw today, the entire session of today was about company manage. All the session of the questions we did, the exam we did, the examples we did is just company manage. Team manage is a bit different. Team manage, they will not ask you that. I would say let's practice, go play. And in your case, what was missing is just this. You need to enable the epic to see it. The main thing they will ask you about team manage is the limitations. Why to use team, when to use company manage, no more. And the access, sorry. If you go to
Permissions,
project
yeah.
settings, yes, they will ask you which type of access you have. And you have the administrator, member, and viewer by default. So this is what the most they will ask you about this type of project.
Cool.
Any other
Thank you very
question?
much. No, good. Thank you very much, friend.
You're welcome. Thank you to you.
Have a nice
Thank you very
evening.
much, everyone. Have a
Thank
nice
you.
evening.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.